Well, rest in peace, SkyPAD. This new WALLHACK SP-004 has absolutely murdered them. And this thing is no joke. SkyPAD is no more. They have now fully rebranded to WALLHACK. Your new website is wallhack.com and they will be referred to as WALLHACK from now on. And the SkyPAD name still sort of lives on as the SP part over here of the SkyPAD lineup, hence why this is not a SkyPAD 4.0 but the SP-004. This glass pad is now much more worth its actual money, and if you want to know what this pad is like, what it's like with all sorts of different types of skates, how fast it actually is, if it's any more quiet, or if your hands stick to it, make sure to keep watching this video because I will answer all of your questions. As a quick disclaimer, WALLHACK did indeed send this pad out to me, but rest assured that will not affect my opinion on the product whatsoever, and I will keep it 100 with you as I do as always. And before we get into the actual video, I wanted to mention that only about 22% of you guys are actually subscribed. So if you're at all enjoying these peripheral enthusiast reviews, definitely hit that subscribe button and the bell right next to it to be notified of any upcoming videos. Before we get into the actual pad itself, we need to talk about the unboxing experience. Instead of the usual packaging that you most often just throw away because it is not something that remarkable or super useful for traveling, you now get this instead. On the outside, it is indeed a cardboard box that looks super cool and all, but when you actually want to open this thing up in order to unbox your pad, you quickly realize that this is more than just a box. It comes with magnets inside of the box, which is very sturdy, so it has this very premium feel, and it definitely makes it much more appealing to actually reuse this thing again, especially for taking this thing to lands and traveling with it. And the packaging itself is super premium. It has foam all over the place, making sure your pad is not moving and not getting destroyed. It also has super handy cutouts to take out your pad with ease. And overall, the whole thing is just insanely premium. When I first got this thing in, the whole packaging with the pad itself weighed so much, so I was wondering if they sent me 2 of them. Inside of the box, you also get this special wipe that is made specifically for this pad in order to clean it up. I probably would still prefer using a normal microfiber cloth, but this thing is very premium, but it does drag quite a lot in your pad, so it's not the easiest cleaning experience, but it definitely does make sure that you get all sorts of dust and hair and stuff like that off your pad. And when it comes to the dimensions of this pad, it is actually 490 by 430, so it is much more a conventional size, just with those extra 10 millimeters here. And for those of you wondering, no, there will not be a 500 by 500 square version at launch. I did try my best to squeeze any info out of them, but they can't comment on any different sizes yet. Seeing the huge shift towards square pads currently, and especially in our enthusiast market, definitely makes me question why they didn't do 2 sizes at launch, but it would probably be a bit dumb of me to assume that you're not gonna do anything different in the future. The base itself is this very thin silicone layer that just makes your pad absolutely stick to your desk. When you actually put the pad on your desk and try to flex it anywhere, you just can't. This is a perfect solution, and a huge upgrade from the 3.0. They now also sell new gloves with their new logo. These new glyphs actually have some lore to it, but I personally don't really care. I guess they look kind of cool, but I do find that this one looks pretty goofy. Also, I only got sent over the glove version, sadly, which I personally cannot use with my aggressive claw grip, since it still has this sort of springy feel here in the hand portion. So if you play an aggressive claw grip, I would not recommend you getting the glove version, but the arm version instead, that they are also selling. But if you do play a fingertip grip, for example, I could definitely see this being superior, since your hand will not stick to the pad anywhere. But talking about your hand sticking to the pad, compared to the older 3.0 version, it is basically a non-issue on this thing. I've easily been able to use this thing without my hands or my arms sort of sticking to the pad. Of course, it's winter right here, so I'm not sweating like crazy, but when using my 3.0 again and comparing it to this thing, this was definitely a much better experience in terms of the overall stickiness of the surface, since this is much smoother. Talking about the designs, you will only be able to get a white or a black version here for launch. That is all they have to offer for this launch, but you would probably be pretty stupid to assume that you're not gonna do any crazy designs in the future. Now, getting into the juicy stuff, the actual surface of the pad. The surface is completely new, very altered towards the 3.0, and I will do direct comparisons in a bit. The surface is much more smooth, and this surface is actually not coated whatsoever. Now, you're probably thinking, we have glass pads, many, that are not coated and also very smooth, but man, this thing is insanely fast. I'm talking fast to the point where I'm lacking the raw aim to even be able to use this thing. If you're an Apex grinder and you play Octane every single day, this pad is probably for you. If you've constantly been looking for a hard pad that is just faster than everything else and you want something that isn't coded but still that fast, which is actually pretty impressive pulling that off without a coding, this is absolutely for you. For me personally though, this thing was way too fast and I cannot wait to get this thing off of my desk, since I definitely do prefer more control type glass pads. Now I have all types of skates here that I will be able to use to compare them for you, but no matter if donuts or Obsidian Pros or core pads, the overall speed on the 3.0 is definitely more controlled than the 4.0. This 4.0 thing is insanely fast. And yeah, I know I've said it a billion times, but just remember, this thing is insanely fast. And especially SkyPAD fans that have been using the 3.0 for a while now are probably going to be very interested in this 4.0, so here's my direct comparison. The overall 3.0 experience is definitely a tad more controlled, and you definitely have that stopping power that you can find despite it being a glass pad, even though the SkyPAD 3.0 was one of the fastest glass pads without a coating out there. But when using the SkyPAD 3.0, I definitely had hand sweat issues where my skin would kind of stick to the pad. I found the 3.0 to be incredibly heavy maintenance. I constantly had to swipe my arm over the pad to get anything off of it so it wouldn't annoy me in game. And with the 4.0, I didn't really have that issue as much. Of course, you're always gonna have those occasional dust hairs that settle on your skates, but overall, I definitely found it to be less maintenance heavy and just insanely fast directly compared to the 3.0 even. Now, directly compared to the Padsmith Empress, which is more of a slightly control-focused pad, even though it is not nearly as controlled as something as the Rave Cosmic, for example, you definitely have more stability on this thing compared to the 04, which just freaking flies again. And this is gonna be a very recurring thing when I compare these pads to each other. Overall, definitely more friction on the Empress. I can feel it sort of tug when I do my tracking. And the SP-004 is basically just an air hockey table at this point. Now, the Gamesense Sonar is not really the best comparison since it's in a different price class and also doesn't have a silicone base. But if you're wondering how it compares together to this new 004, it feels more similar to something like the Padsmith Empress, so it's slightly more control focused, whilst the SkyPAD 4.0 is, again, just an air hockey table. I also want to mention that the Sonar is very non-arm sleeve friendly as well, but really that's about it again. Now, compared to my Esptiger Pink Lotus, the sizing is of course very different, and in terms of speed, the Pink Lotus is again not as insanely speedy. This Esptiger Pink Lotus is a very balanced experience, not too fast, not too controlled. It does have a coating though, which is a minus. In terms of speed compared to the new SkyPAD, this thing just flies. I do have the nifter glass pad as well, and the black Pink Lotus from Esptiger too, but these comparisons all sort of don't make any sense because this thing is just that much faster than any other glass pad out there. So if that is what you're looking for, definitely go for it. And since I already know comments are gonna flow in like crazy asking what skates you should use on this pad, I have the most popular options listed here, and these will also be my top 5 recommendations as well. If there are any skates that I am not listing here, it's because I don't recommend them. The most popular skate option are definitely the Obsidians by X-raypad when it comes to actual hard pads, and basically it's still what I would recommend for you to go for if you don't know what skates to get for your hard pad. These skates are a bit more soft, so they are very smooth on this glass pad. You basically never notice any hair or dust with these skates, and as already said, if you don't know what to get these things. Now, since I'm a huge core pad fan, I've been using core pads mostly on this pad, mainly because I didn't want to ruin the skates on all of my mice just to test this pad out. The experience is still fine, and you do get a tiny bit more control since you have more surface area on your skates compared to normal dots or donuts. But since you have more surface area, it also means that there's a higher chance of you getting dust or hair stuck between the skate and the surface itself. So not my top recommendation, but if you already got core pads, just use them until you want to change them. They're not that bad. Now, when it comes to the Obsidian Pro skates, these were a huge letdown before this pad came out. But on the SkyPAD 4.0 or the SP-004 by WALLHACK, these things are freaking awesome. They're not the most quiet experience, but overall these skates feel like they were made for this pad, especially when comparing the overall experience to the ones of other pads with these skates. When these first came out, basically everybody tried them out, they were really hyped, and they instantly swapped back to the normal Obsidians just because they were that bad on all other pads. But on this new WALLHACK pad, they feel really good and I can definitely recommend them. But do note that this is a bit of a more harsh and a bit more hard experience compared to the normal Obsidians that are softer. Overall, I do think that you get a tiny bit more control with these, and I do feel that I have more stopping power with these skates compared to something like the normal Obsidians, where I still kind of glide a bit when I stop my mouse. So if you want something that is a tiny bit more controlled, the Obsidian Pros are definitely for you. But if you want the most quiet skate experience possible, something like the Ghost Glide skates is something that I can definitely recommend. The experience on this pad is insanely quiet for whatever reason, and it's super buttery smooth. I don't feel any hair or dust ever when playing with these. So overall, I can definitely recommend the Ghost Glides dots for this one. And for those of you who don't know who they are, they're the Ghost Glides Edge Runner dots. And something that has also risen in popularity a lot are donut skates. The donut jades are the fastest experience possible on this new WALLHACK pad. If you want something that is just a complete air hockey table, get the jades. No matter if donuts or dots, it really doesn't matter that much. These things just fly. You need insane raw aim if you want to use jades on this pad, but if you do want that insanely fast experience, get these. Oh! What the fuck? Ugh. Now, let's talk about my opinion about this thing. I do think that this is a really nice improvement over the 3.0. The packaging together with the new backing, with this new design language as well, with the overall insanely premium feeling of this very smooth surface, I do think that the price tag now makes more sense. But since they're staying at the same MSRP as with the 3.0, I do still think that they have some really tough competition. There are a lot of glass pads in our space, especially pads that are uncoated as well, similar sizing, maybe even bigger and also cheaper. $119 is a lot, but if you want that insanely premium feel with the fastest glass pad experience ever out there that is not even coated, there's really nothing out there like this. This is now a real complete package. There's nothing really missing from the experience except for maybe that square size that Twitter aimers really want. I think that those looking for a faster glass pad coming from the 3.0 are gonna be insanely happy with this, but I personally am very happy to not have to use this thing anymore. Going through a whole week of testing with this thing was definitely a huge pain for me personally because this thing is just too fast for me. I much prefer something like the Padsmith Empress, even though that is not a real control glass pad. This thing thing is just that much more fast, and I lack the raw aim for it. Swapping from a normal cloth pad over to this is going from riding a bike with training wheels to backcountry free riding out in the Rocky Mountains. Now to the conclusion. Who is this pad for? If you want the fastest glass pad out on the market that is not coated, doesn't stick to your arm, and comes with a really great packaging, get this thing right now. And since I also have to tell you who this pad is not for, don't get this thing if you want something with control. Even if you want something balanced, don't get this thing. If you know you're gonna lack that raw aim on a surface this insanely fast, please just refrain from buying this thing. I really hope that SkyPAD are gonna make a controlled version of a glass pad as well in the future, just so I can enjoy this awesome quality. But until then, I'm gonna stay on my cloth pads. Something that I also want to mention in my conclusion is that the edges are only slightly rounded, but the pad is 3.9 millimeters thin, so it is a pretty thin glass pad sandwich that hasn't annoyed me personally at all when using it for aiming, despite me always using my pad in the middle of my table and not aligning it to the edge of my desk. So I personally don't see this edge as an issue, but maybe it is one for you. If you're planning on buying this thing, please make sure to use my link down in the description. You can also use code JQ over at the checkout. I really appreciate anybody that supports my content like that when using my code, but please only buy it if you really want this thing. $120 is a lot of money. I would only buy it if you know that you want the fastest glass pad out there. But yeah, that's about it for this video. If you're enjoying the content at all, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell right next to it to be notified of any other upcoming enthusiast peripheral reviews. And other than that, I'm out, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace out.